subscribe, and, like the video.
But how does the country even have that many doctors? In 1959, when Castro assumed power, half of the 6,300 doctors in the country defected. So the country concentrated its efforts on training new doctors. They put in place an emergency accelerated curriculum in 1963 so that they could realize their vision for a free and accessible public health system. They also invited students from newly independent African and Caribbean countries to enroll. Academic records were not the only criteria. So was a commitment to solidarity and serving communities without access to health. The program has changed a lot over the years, but there's one...
That was crazy. Did y'all see that? That was wild. They got me. They got me. God damn it, they got me. I got hit with a CIA heart attack gun. My stream did. Right as I was about to read the one chatter who said, my wife was a doctor in Cuba and now she's in the United States, also a doctor in the United States. They are basically property of the state. Like right as I was about to read the reactionary chatter, be like, this is actually bad. You know, I love this take because, oh, there it is. Look, I love this take because this is what they say about like any kind of nationalized healthcare system as well. My wife left Cuba. She was a doctor there and now a doctor in the USA. They are considered property of the state. Yes, dude. Yes. What you're describing is unironically a nationalized healthcare system. Okay. Or rather, you subtly wanted to say you got a bad bitch for a wife, you know? Hey, listen up, chatters. I got a Latina wife who's a doctor. Like, sweet flex, man. That's cool. I'm proud of you.
Cuba's medical education system exists within the healthcare system.
My wife is a public defender in America, and in that country, they are considered property of the state. I know. Property like Marine, but not doing fucked up shit. Exactly. Anyway, let's continue.
Instead of teaching hospitals, there's teaching at community centers and polyclinics. Polyclinics are community-based clinics with primary care physicians, specialists, and diagnostic testing. And each clinic tailors their medical approach to the needs of that community. Medical and nursing students intern in this national system from their very first year. Today, Cuba has the largest medical university in the world, the Latin American School of Medicine. And they offer scholarships to students from around the world who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford medical school. But it's not just medical training that Cuba has succeeded at. They've also innovated in the biotech industry, partly because of sanctions. In the 80s, their doctors developed vaccines preventing dengue fever and meningitis. They've developed a number of successful drugs that help with everything from diabetic foot ulcers to HIV and hepatitis. But in 1998, Cuba's free medical missions embraced the free market. The relatively poor country realized that they could tap into their robust healthcare to boost the economy. 30,000 doctors were sent to Venezuela, and in return, Cuba bought oil from Venezuela below market prices. Cuba then set up permanent missions which the country would be paid for in South Africa, Qatar, Brazil, Algeria, and Kenya. Leasing healthcare professionals to 67 countries around the world brings in $11 billion a year. But how does it work? During these permanent missions, doctors' salaries and living expenses are paid for by the countries they're working in. But the Cuban government also gets a cut. Reports suggest that between 75% and 90% of the salary goes to the government, but the doctors still end up earning.
By the way, this is literally the reason why the American government wants to put an end to it. Yeah, it's crazy to think that like these dudes found a way out of the insane, the completely unjustifiable sanctions and trade embargo that they were placed under by America, the world's largest superpower, who was mad that they had a successful socialist revolution against the America-backed dictator, that they just never let Cuba have a moment to be itself, a moment to recognize its autonomy, its sovereignty. And ever since then, we've just been punishing them for this crime of doing a successful revolution. And no matter what, like they find ways out of it due to ingenuity, due to resilience, due to central control and central planning. And even then, it's like America will never stop being the biggest evil villain of all time, in spite of it all.
A lot more than they would in Cuba. But some doctors aren't happy with the arrangement and have complained of harsh living and working conditions. In 2006, the US created the Cuban Medical Professional Parole Program. It granted visas to any Cuban doctors who wanted to defect.
We just found Chatter's wife, by the way.
The program ended in 2017, but before that, it's estimated that 7,000 doctors defected. US officials have called Cuban international medical missions human trafficking and modern slavery. Cuba's health ministry says this isn't the case, and the US is trying to undermine their missions and curb revenue they make to put pressure on the country. In 2018, Cuba pulled thousands of doctors from Brazil when the country's right-wing president Jair Bolsonaro called the doctors slaves and terrorists and threatened.
Yeah, Bolsonaro saying this is slavery. It's funny because, like, you know, he loves slavery. I don't know.
Threatened to cancel medical cooperation agreements. More than 8,000 Cuban doctors have been stationed in remote areas in Brazil where it's difficult to get.
Have you ever spoken about the absolute pathetic grift that is Asmongold's current content, or do you think you just saw your success and said, I'm going to do the version of that? Yes, I have spoken about it. I even briefly alluded to it earlier today. At this point, I just kind of like crack jokes about it because we've known about this for quite some time. He has been doing it for a while. He's completely restructured his content around basically being Bizarro Hasan. I shower every day. I work out every day. I am on the right side of issues every day. He is the exact opposite. I'm political. He's apolitical. I leave my house every day. I go touch grass every day. Yeah.
Brazilians to work. But the situation has changed because of the coronavirus. Brazil says it could hire back Cuban doctors that are still in the country. Dozens of other countries have also sent requests to Cuba to send emergency teams of doctors. The US says that Havana is exploiting the crisis in their own doctors and criticized countries who want to use them to fight coronavirus.
La campaña de descrédito del gobierno de los Estados Unidos es inmoral en cualquier circunstancia. Es particularmente ofensiva para Cuba y el mundo en momentos de una pandemia que nos amenaza a todos y cuando todos deberíamos estar esforzándonos por promover la solidaridad y la ayuda a quienes la necesitan.
But with more than 250,000 people now dead from coronavirus, is now the time to criticize medical missions which could save lives?
Let's talk about there's more to talk about before I move on to Elon Musk and Vivian. Well, I do want to talk about Elon Musk in general. Jokes aside, you are the more apolitical between the two of you. You have a set of beliefs based on empathy and actual common sense for daily living. He's a reactionary weirdo, as every one of his convictions colored by reactionary political sentiment. Yeah. Oh, part of the reason why I'm interviewing a doctor from Cuba is because the Trump administration has taken new initiatives specifically to undermine countries that have good relations with Cuba and are they allow or they get Cuban doctors to come and help with healthcare in their countries. Now, there's a bunch of Caribbean nations that do this. Jamaica obviously is one of these countries, and Marco Rubio actually landed in Jamaica earlier today. And as you guys understand, here's the consent manufacturing machine. Caribbean leaders deny U.S. claims that Cuban health workers are victims of forced labor. But here it is. Marco Rubio landed in Jamaica aiming to spear Cuban doctors providing crucial free healthcare across the region. But the Jamaican prime minister shut him down, making it clear he had no right to speak for Jamaica or undermine the work of the Cuban doctors.
We are, however, very careful not to exploit the Cuban doctors who are here. We ensure that they are treated within our labor laws and benefit like any other worker. So any characterization of the program by others certainly would not be applicable to Jamaica. We are ensuring that our program complies with all the international laws and standards to which we are a party to.
Ironically, Marco Rubio is trying to change the international rules and standards. Once again, the whole purpose of this visit and part of the reason why I'm having this conversation with a Cuban doctor in particular is because little Marco is lying and is also actively trying to stop this Cuban doctor process from happening. On his first stop, the Caribbean, Marco Rubio arrived in Jamaica intending to attack the Cuban medical brigades operating in the region, but at the press conference, the Jamaican prime minister, as you guys saw, shut him down.
About the provision of medical assistance, we have no problem with medical assistance. We have no problem with doctors. But
we have no problem with medical assistance, but the doctors that offer it if they're Cuban. How dare you? Oh. Little Marco. Believe me, little Marco. Can we just, for a moment, acknowledge how wild it is to accuse the former slave colonies of slavery and exploitation? Yeah. And the reason why we are accusing the former slave colony of slavery and exploitation, okay, and then this also is like, you know, you can say this about Cuba and Jamaica both, obviously, but especially on the Cuban front, the reason why we're saying this is because they overcame a brutal dictatorship that had not de jure, but de facto slavery still in their plantation structure. So it is wild that America is still not giving up on trying to be the biggest piece of shit in the room, no matter how big the room is, you know? Fantastic stuff. Thank you, America. Very cool. Very cool. Musk's XAI buys social media platform X for $45 billion. Musk's XAI acquires X in $45 billion all-stock deal. Wait, what? Combined company valued at $80 billion, Musk announces. XAI raised $6 billion at $40 billion valuation, sources say. Is this... Yeah, money is so fake. And I don't think there's any regulation left in the government anyway, especially against Elon Musk. But what the he's just like taking his right hand and shoving it in his left pocket. Like, what is happening here? This seems so fraudulent. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not the biggest business minded guy, but I look at something like this and I'm like, is this even like what happened here? Okay, Elon has an AI company called XAI. Also overinflated. He fundraises for XAI. Then he takes XAI and acquires the company he had acquired prior, Twitter, X, and places it under the banner of XAI. Combined company value is now at $80 billion. So he paid himself in XAI stocks, which are likely far more valuable than Twitter at this point, for the company that he massively devalued. Isn't this what cryptocurrency wallets do in order to artificially boost the value of a particular cryptocurrency that they maintain? They'll just like sell it back to themselves. Yeah, they sell it between crypto wallets that they have. Yeah, wash trading. Now, of course, because that's like an insecure, unverified, unprosecutable asset for the most part, because it's only a security that you can actually prosecute on if it's something that the SEC has interest in prosecuting, which the SEC obviously doesn't exist anymore. But this is basically the above board stock market version of this, it seems. The NVIDIA chips that XAI used were originally purchased by Tesla. XAI and X's futures are intertwined. Today, we officially take the step to combine the data, models, compute, distribution, computer. Everything is computer. Musk said in a post on X, adding the combined company would be valued at $80 billion. The billionaire's AI startup. Does anyone have a YouTube video describing this? Because or talking about whether or not this is illegal? Because it seems kind of illegal. Speaking of Elon Musk doing illegal everything's computer. Speaking of Elon Musk doing illegal he has announced $1 million for a Wisconsin voter in the Supreme Court race, which is, I can't even call this electioneering anymore, which is illegal. I don't know. This is like electioneering ranges from wearing a Trump hat to the voter polls to, you know, I guess doing this technically. But this is like the most illegal version of that. Being like, hey, I'm going to give you $1 million if you vote for this person in this particular race is like that's ridiculous. Now, the way that you try to get away with this is you can't say it's an election bribery. You can't say that you're directly trying to get someone to vote for your preferred candidate, except I think Elon Musk is so stupid he made inferences. Here it is. Elon Musk has deleted this tweet from 1 a.m. about his upcoming talk in Wisconsin. The rules surrounding these checks have drawn some legal scrutiny. Anyway, the original tweet is no longer available. On Sunday night, I will give a talk in Wisconsin. Interest is limited to those who have voted in the Supreme Court election. I will also personally hand over 2 checks for $1 million each in appreciation for you taking the time to vote. This is super important. Yeah, so he actually did this still kind of above board. Although I don't know if you can do that as a PAC. And I know that he's doing this with the America PAC. But technically he's not saying you have to vote for my preferred candidate. Technically, he's saying Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul announces legal action against Elon Musk over interference in state's Supreme Court race. No. He didn't say he's giving entrance. Oh, he did. Entrance is limited to those who have voted in the Supreme Court election. No, I think the law states that you can't look. Offers, gives, lends, promises to give, lend, endeavors to procure anything of value or any office or employment or any privilege of immunity or for any elector or for any other person to go to or refrain from going to the polls, vote or refrain from vote. Oh, I guess you can't